How is it rocking, Dwayne Nation? Stay here because we are just about to get underway. In the meantime, please like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. We put out weekly sports content, and we want to continue to build up Dwayne Nation and the brand that is Dwayne Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy. Welcome in, Dwayne Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and the NFL is back, ladies and gentlemen. We got 16 games. Week 1 is almost underway. Hopefully you're watching this right before so you can get kind of your fantasy inputs that you're curious about, because this is our episode leading into each game. We're going to cover all 16 games, starting with Thursday night all the way through Monday night. So I can't wait for you guys to hear this. But before we dive into it, how you feeling, Genoa?
Yo, Dewey Nation. I'm feeling so good, Justin. This weekend is football. Once again, we're at another NFL season. This is Dewey Nation's first inaugural regular season, so we're excited, Justin. I'm pumped. I know you're pumped. I'm doing great, Justin. We're less than 24 hours away. We're recording right now from the kickoff there in Kansas City. I'm so excited, man. I'm going to be home tomorrow, 5:30, 2 hours for the game, pregame, chicken wings in my hand, ready to go, Justin. Ready to go and watch every single play of Thursday night kickoff. And then the day after that, Justin, Philly in Brazil versus Green Bay, two great teams. If you watched our previous video there, our standings there, those are my top two seeds in the NFC. So they're getting things there done early. And Justin, I'm so excited. Football is back. It's going to be a great season, fantasy-wise. And I'm excited, Justin. I'm out of words, really.
Yeah, I love it. And as you just mentioned, Dwayne Nation, if you haven't seen, we did just post our NFL playoff division winner, Super Bowl predictions, a whole lot. It's in a whole beautiful, ginormous episode where you get to see where your team stacks up all the way to who is lifting the Lombardi Trophy in Caesars Superdome in New Orleans on February 9th, 2025. So take a look at that one as well. But this one is for people who are wanting to know who to start in their fantasy lineups, what to think about each game coming down the line. So we're going to start with the first game of the season, Baltimore heading into Kansas City. And I have concerns about a lot of people in this matchup. I don't think it's going to be a super fantasy friendly kind of game. I think Mahomes will get his. He'll get his 250, maybe 2 touchdowns. Yeah. Lamar will get his rushing yards. Obviously, you have to start all these guys: Lamar, Pat, Derrick Henry, Travis Kelce. Those are all must starts in your lineups every week. I think one of these Chiefs receivers will probably score a touchdown, either being Rashee Rice or Xavier Worthy. He might excite some people with Hollywood being out. And then on Baltimore's side, I think Mark Andrews will be very interesting. And we'll see. Zay Flowers, I usually would be off of him because I'm not super high on him this season. But knowing him, knowing the player he is, it's the first game back. He fumbled in that AFC Championship. He might want to get his get back, and I think he will score a touchdown as well. But it's going to be an exciting game. What do you think?
I think it's going to be an exciting game up until after halftime. Justin, I have the Chiefs winning this 28-13. Looking into last year's opener, it was Detroit in Kansas City, and it was a 1-point victory for the Lions. It was kind of an ugly back and forth there, Justin. I think that's how Week 1 has been historically. If you look back 2 years ago when the Rams opened up their season, there was a butt whooping that they took from the Buffalo Bills. So, you never know where you're going to get Week 1 there. And I know if you're going like 3 years back, I know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a thriller shootout against the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if you remember that.
I do, yes.
With Amari Cooper and CD shining on one side, and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown. Yeah, and they had a great game. So I guess every other year it's been kind of flipped. So I think that the pattern is kind of trending to a blowout. Since last year's game was a close game, and the year before, like I mentioned, when the Rams opened up, it was a blowout, and the year before was a close shootout. So I think that it's been a pattern. So maybe tomorrow night, hopefully not, but I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a blowout. I do have 28-13 there. Mahomes with 3 touchdowns. And I do think that the Ravens kind of scored late, but Justin, this Chiefs defense is pretty dynamic. But from a fantasy perspective, I do like Mahomes there. I'm not really sure what we're going to see out of Derrick Henry off the bat. Like I mentioned, that Chiefs defense is dynamic. I do think Derrick Henry just finishes with a simple 68, 70 rushing yards, no scores there. Lamar has trouble, I think, throwing it around. I do think he has a rushing touchdown, but that's about it.
All right, all right, I like that. I'll give you a win or two. I think the Chiefs will win, and they'll win 20-14. So it'll be kind of ugly.
Okay.
Um, but okay, so we got Chiefs. Moving on to game two. It's in Brazil on Friday night. Green Bay and Philadelphia. Just to kind of go over the must starts of this game. Obviously, you're starting Jalen Hurts. You're starting Saquon Barkley. You're starting AJ Brown. On the Packers side, you're starting Josh Jacobs, and you're most likely starting Jordan Love. Out of the rest of the guys, I do think one of the guys will come up big in the first game. I'm going to go with that being Jaden Reed. I think he's going to have 7+ catches, maybe high 80s, early 90s kind of yards. I don't know if he'll get that touchdown, but he'll be an interesting piece. And then on Philly side, I think I'm a little worried. I think AJ Brown might be a little locked up in this first game. I think it will be a sluggish game as well. We already seen players, especially Darius Slay, go on social media being like, "I don't want to go to Brazil." Most of the time, international games are really sluggish. I think this will be a similar one, even though I think both offenses are going to be top 5 in the league, kind of thing. But I think Devonta Smith is going to be the sneaky play out of this football game.
No, yeah, absolutely, Justin. Looking off the bat for these two matchups, I don't think Saquon Barkley, the debut, is going to be too impressive. I think he'll have maybe 60 yards and a touchdown, but that's like the maximum there. I feel like he kind of gets things going as the season goes along as one of the top running backs in the league. On the Green Bay side there, it's really tough to, I think Green Bay struggles a little bit in this game offensively. I think that maybe it might be more of a Christian Watson game with about 7 or 8 receptions there. I like Jaden Reed there. I don't think we hear much from Dobbs or Musgraves, like I mentioned. I think Josh Jacobs has some trouble there to start things off. So I like Philly there better. I do think Jalen Hurts starts things off with 3 total touchdowns. I think he's going to rush for 1. Now, here's the question, though, Justin. I don't know if they're going to do a tush push there. That's the question. Are they going to do a tush push? But I think Jalen Hurts is going to be one of those, 20-yard touchdown rushes from Jalen Hurts where he takes a snap in a shotgun formation, not looking to find anybody there who's open. He just kind of just some Jalen Hurts magic, what he's been able to do in rushing for a touchdown. I think that AJ Brown has a little bit of an underwhelming game, like 6 catches, 58 yards there from AJ Brown. I do think that Dallas Goedert scores a random weird touchdown there if he plays. Devontae Smith, I think, could get 100 yards, but I do think the Eagles win that. But as far as fantasy, I think Jalen Hurts is pretty much the alpha there in scoring.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to run away from the tush push at all. So I think Jalen's going to get those touches when he can. But before we move to the Sunday games, I just want to ask you, between these two games, guys that are going right next to each other in consensus rankings for Week 1, would you rather start Devonta Smith against the Packers or Rashee Rice against the Ravens?
Ooh, wow, that's a great one. I'm gonna go with Rashee Rice,
Okay.
just because he's going to be kind of playing with less coverage on him because everybody's going to be looking at Travis Kelce, and then not only that, the rookie out of Texas, Xavier Worthy, he's going to probably have some plays that's going to have the Ravens defense alarmed. So that leaves Rashee Rice, who a lot of people had doubts if he's going to play this year with his off the field incident. So I don't think a lot of defenses are kind of looking at him. And not only that, with the best play caller and the best quarterback in the league, I mean, Rashee Rice had a great finish to last year. He was the number 1 receiver, and even in some ways better than Travis Kelce, who had a pretty disappointing ending to his fantasy season. So I'm going to go with Rashee Rice on this one. I do think that he could get 100 yards and perhaps a touchdown, actually.
All right. Okay. I'll play devil's advocate. I think I'd go Devonta. But for my score of this game, I think it'll be Eagles 27-24. Which is a pretty solid number for the first game. All right, moving to Sunday, the Sunday slate, the noon o'clock games or 1 o'clock games here on the East Coast. We'll jump through these as fast as we can. We got the Steelers at the Falcons. I think another game that will be sluggish. I think a big game for Najee Harris is coming up with Jaylen Warren kind of being questionable. And Arthur Smith wanting his get back on the Falcons. He probably feels like he was wronged, even though he did all the wronging. I see a really good game for Najee Harris. On the Falcons side, I do think the first game out of the gate will be a little bit of a struggle. I think the only guy I have a lot of confidence in is Bijan Robinson. Drake London, I will temper it a little bit, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, actually, here, I think I'm going to go a different route, Justin. I think this is a little bit of a mini shootout there. I'm thinking one of those games that come down to the wire, and I'm thinking the Falcons win by 1 point by the score of 33-32. It's one of those games that they gets hot late in the second half there in the third quarter. I think the Falcons win by 1 point, but I'm going to say Russell Wilson impresses. We might see a little bit of a Justin Fields package there. Man, honestly, Justin, I would have loved to see Justin Fields play this game in Atlanta. I think it'd be more of an exciting game just because of the rushing upside that Justin Fields brings to this Steelers offense. But hey, I think Russell still gets some deep balls there. Fantasy-wise, yes, I love my guy Bijan to have a great game. Drake London, I'm not really so high on this year. I know a lot of people drafted him really high. I don't think he has a great game yet. I think this is more of a Kyle Pitts game. And as well as maybe some Mooney, maybe some Algier. And, who knows? Maybe Russell Wilson throws a pick six that gets another Falcon score there. Russell Wilson has been struggling there this past couple seasons, throwing the ball. He does score at a high rate, but he also turns over the ball there. And some Russell, what are you doing kind of play. So I think this is a back and forth game. The Falcons win by 1 point. You mentioned Najee Harris, who could have a great game, but Justin, if Najee Harris doesn't have a great game with Jaylen Warren potentially being out, I don't think it's ever going to happen for this guy. I mean, they drafted him in the first round a few years ago out of Alabama. It has to be now. It's now or never for Najee Harris there. But I definitely like some George Pickens there. And a guy that we talked about during the NFL draft is Roman Wilson. Maybe he can be the guy that provides some spark there. But yeah, I like this as a mini shootout.
All right, so you also have Falcons. I have Falcons as well. I'm going to go 23-17. They win by right under a touchdown. But moving to the next game on the slate, we got Arizona going to Buffalo in a game that I think will be the highest scoring on the week. I think Kyler and Josh Allen will go at it in one of the few games where Buffalo has pretty solid weather. And even though it's Marvin Harrison's first game, I do not think he will struggle. I think it'll be a very solid game for him, as well as James Conner, Trey McBride, and Kyler Murray. I would start all of those Cardinals. On the Bills side, Josh Allen, yes. James Cook, yes. Dalton Kincaid, yes. The other guys, I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach and see if one of them outshines in the first week. It could be, honestly, any three of them, Shakir, Coleman, or Curtis Samuel. But you start the guys that you picked in the first 7 rounds, which is essentially all those players that I mentioned. So not too much out of this game besides start your starters and expect a lot of points.
I'm going to go another different route here, Justin. I think this is a blowout. 38-13 victory for the Buffalo Bills. Jeez. Now, look, the Cardinals are going to be good this year. They have an improved offense there, after drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. But I just feel like this is just a bad matchup for my man Kyler Murray there in Buffalo. Playing in Buffalo has always been tough. Even when the Patriots were winning division after division, that was one of the toughest, areas for Tom Brady to play. Even though he had a lot of success, he did just struggle sometimes in Buffalo. There, I think it's Orchard Park, and I just love the matchup for all Bills. And I'm gonna go ahead and say that Keon Coleman has a breakout game. He scores a touchdown. I'm not saying he has 100 yards, but Keon Coleman will score a touchdown. I do think Kincaid has a good game. I do think Shakir has a pretty good wide receiver 2 game there in Buffalo. We see some Curtis Samuel there. I think just Buffalo clicks all around. James Cook gets his. Josh Allen gets his. Keon Coleman impresses as the next Stephon Diggs, number 1 wide receiver there in Buffalo. And I feel like Kyler Murray and the gang score a little bit of a third quarter kind of garbage time touchdown. They struggle. The offensive line isn't well established. I feel like they struggle in Buffalo. The running game isn't going to be established. The team isn't going to put in Trey Benson off the bat. Nobody really believes in James Conner, who gets pretty drafted in a good spot there in fantasy. But I just think that Kyler Murray struggles a little bit. The offense struggles. Jonathan Gannon struggles. I do think they come stronger out there in week 2. But this is going to be a bad game for the Cardinals. I do think Buffalo kind of reigns high. But, hey, start your Buffalo Bills starters. I wouldn't go as far as to say to start the defense. Maybe. It looks like a good matchup to me. But I think that those Buffalo pass catchers have a great game.
Wow, we are on different pages on this one. I actually have the Cardinals upsetting Buffalo in Buffalo
Wow.
by a score of 34-31. I think it's going to be fireworks, and we're going to see a little bit of what I think the Cardinals are going to show this season.
Yeah.
Moving to the next game, we got Tennessee at Chicago. Caleb Williams' first game against Will Levis. I have the Chicago Bears winning this game, and it's going to be a little ugly. I do think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be about 21-17. Chicago wins. You start your DJ Moore. You start Caleb Williams. I think we'll have a solid game. I'll let you talk about him more, but I do think a sit out of this will be DeAndre Swift. I'm not super high on him, as well as Roma Dunze. Don't rely on him in your first week. Keenan Allen, I think, could be interesting. I probably wouldn't start him. Hopefully, you have other options. And on the Tennessee side, the only guys I'm really liking out of it, most of them I want to take a wait and see approach, even with Calvin Ridley. But I think maybe Tyjae Spears is a sleeper of this game.
Yeah, Justin, I want to ask you a quick question. Would you start Caleb Williams this week in fantasy? I'm just curious. They're home with Tennessee. I mean, what are we thinking here?
I mean, I look at Caleb Williams in your very first game to be a startable quarterback, a startable asset it's a risk. It's a big risk to take, and I probably wouldn't try to start him unless you really don't have other options. Like I would start Tua, I would start T-Law, I would start Matthew Stafford, I would start even Jaden Daniels, and then all those top 10 guys. So he kind of fits in as a middle quarterback 2 in week 1. So most likely I would not be starting him.
Cool. Okay. Well, let me get to the aspects of this matchup, Justin. First of all, for the Tennessee side, I'm a little bit worried about them. I do think Will Levis has a decent game. I don't know if Calvin really makes much of an impact there in Chicago in that first game with the Titans. And I'm a little concerned for those pass catchers. I'm gonna go with, I don't know how I want to score this. I'm gonna give a 27-21 victory there. You mentioned it's gonna be an ugly game. I think for the most part it is gonna be an ugly game. I'm not sure what to expect from Caleb Williams in his first game. Now, a game that kind of comes to mind was Cam Newton's NFL debut there, where he started off on the road in Arizona. And he had a great game. He had a great game there. And it's kind of giving me a little bit of what Caleb Williams could do. Now, Caleb Williams is set there with his pass catchers, Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore. And they have Cole Kmet, who's a decent tight end. They can have Swift, who can catch out of the backfield. But it's very questionable how to approach this because we haven't really seen Caleb Williams do much. It's his first game, obviously. If I had to pick a pass catcher, I'm just going to keep it safe there. DJ Moore has a great game. Roma Dunze, we don't hear much from. Maybe we get a Cole Kmet touchdown, Justin. I'm thinking a Cole Kmet touchdown.
Sure.
Will Levis, I want to say he has a pretty decent game, 221. I mentioned they scored 21 points. So I think Will Levis has 2 touchdowns out of those. A pretty decent game, but you mentioned it's going to get ugly. These are 2 kind of teams that are still new. Will Levis is barely, it's his second year in the league. So there's going to be a lot of struggling there. I'm hoping Caleb Williams can have a wow kind of NFL debut there because it just feels like it's there for him. He's home. It's Chicago. I'm looking at the weather forecast there, Justin. It's looking nice. It's Tennessee. They don't really have a star defensive player. I know they just got Snead there. They traded from Kansas City there. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty decent matchup. That's probably one of the games that I have my eye most on this weekend.
Okay, interesting. So we both have Chicago in a close one. Moving to the next game, this one's probably one of the quickest games to go over. New England at Cincinnati. The only guy you could argue to start is Ramondre Stevenson on the New England side of the ball. I do think he'll probably have 20-plus touches. I don't think they're going to rely on Jacoby Brissett too much. So I think he's a really solid flex option. Right now he's going around the Najee Harris range. Who would you start, Najee or Ramondre?
I'm going to start Najee just because they're indoors there. Their offensive line, I would say Steelers and Patriots offensive lines are about the same. But I'm not, the Falcons D line is not really intimidating. I think the Bengals defense is more of a stout, more experienced defense there. They kept their defensive coordinator there. So it's kind of the same people, with, Hendrickson and Hubbard and, all those guys there. I know they lost a couple pieces, but I do think that they're going to be a stout defense. I don't think Jacoby Brissett's going to be able to move the football at all. To be honest, I would have just started Drake May or even Joe Milton. Really, I just feel like this is going to be a bad game. I don't feel like Brissett's going to have a high turnover game. I just think he's not going to be able to convert on key third downs. There's going to be times when they go for fourth, and Cincinnati's just not going to let them have it. So for fantasy, I'm starting the Bengals defense in one of our leagues. Justin, obviously we love T. Higgins, we love Jamar Chase. Zach Moss, I'm starting in one of our other leagues. And as far as Patriots, it's just going to be Ramondre, but I'm not sure if he's going to get. I'm thinking, like you mentioned, 20 touches. I'm thinking 20 rushes for barely 70 yards. No score there for Ramondre. I just don't think they're not able to move the ball. I think they scored a garbage time touchdown there with one of their other quarterbacks. I don't think it's Brissett who leads any one of their touchdown drives. So I'm thinking a 31-7 victory for Cincinnati there. I think maybe it's rather going to be a T. Higgins game or a Jamar game that's 120 plus yards and a touchdown. Joe Burrow has a fairly decent game. He struggles a little bit because I feel like the Patriots D line is going to get to him. I'm not confident that Bengals offensive line just yet, but I do think that defense helps them get into scoring range, and that's why the Bengals win their 31-7.
All right, 31-7. That's a pretty good outlook. I probably would have. I'm gonna go with 31 to. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with. I'll give them a little bit more points. I'll go 31-14. Cincinnati finally gets a soft one where they can start a season somewhat hot. I have the same notes though. Probably I'm starting Burrow. If Chase plays, I'm starting Chase. Higgins as well. Zach Moss, I will probably start. I think they'll have a lot of goal line opportunities, even though normally I'd want to wait and see. So that's Cincinnati. Moving to the next game, we got the Houston Texans going against the Colts. And I think this game will be more defensive than we think.
Yeah.
But I think CJ will have a very good game. He's gonna start. He's your starter. I would start all three Texans wide receivers if you can. Pittman, AR, Jonathan Taylor. Those are the only three names of any relevance on the Colts. And with Mixon, I think he's got a great matchup. He, not playing at all in the preseason or most of training camp too is a little worrisome. So I'm cautiously starting him, but I'm not super excited. But everybody else, I'm pretty excited with starting.
No, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's actually a big time defensive game, and I think the Colts kind of slide with a 19-16 victory there in Indianapolis. I just like this Colts defense. This Colts team overall is very, they're just very solid, Justin, all around. The coaching's there. And I think Jonathan Taylor has a massive game. I'm thinking 133 yards and a touchdown there. AR has about, I would say, 65 to 70 yards rushing. I don't think he gets a touchdown. I just think that Colts defense is able to neutralize CJ. Sadly, my Texans, I think they go 0-1 to start the year. I do think they have a great season, though. But this is a struggle game. It's going to be a divisional game. These two teams, they played each other the very last week of the season. Now they're starting this season off against each other. And I feel like the Colts are a little bit more prepared to win this game. It's just more of a strategic, I play chess, you play checkers kind of thing. I don't really I think obviously the Texans have a lot of talent there. I just think the Colts just strategically coaching get the best of them. And the Colts historically kind of get the best of us Texans. Obviously we've had our victories against them, but the Colts are just that one team that have our number, Justin. I feel like with AR and Jonathan Taylor, those are two players. And Pittman, the guy's a Texan killer. Guy's always kind of goes off against the Texans. I feel like he's going to have a great game too. So he's going to have about 100 yards receiving there, 8 catches, a great player to put in your PPR lineups as well as your daily fantasy. So CJ has a great game. I think he goes over 300 yards passing and a touchdown. But again, it's just I just feel like he's going to struggle to convert our key third down situations because that Colts defense is very solid. So I have the Colts winning by 3 there.
I have the Colts winning by 1, 24-23. It'll be close to the very end. I don't think any team will pull away.
Mm-hmm,
but you got a lot of good options on both sides. So start your starters kind of thing. Moving to the next game, we got Jacksonville at Miami. I think this game will be super electric, at least on the Dolphins side. Start Tua, start Jalen, start Tyreek, start Raheem, start Devon. I think all are really interesting pieces. I think Jonnu Smith's a sleeper. And on the Jacksonville side, you got Travis Etienne, of course, that you got to start. Evan Ingram, you probably have to start. And then it comes down to I'd probably wait and see on Brian Thomas, even though I like him this season. And Christian Kirk, I think, will be a solid, a solid PPR play this week. I don't think he'll have like a huge game, but maybe 8 for 80, and in a PPR league, that's pretty juicy. So that's my thoughts on the game.
No, absolutely, Justin. I want to mention this could be a potential revenge game. Jalen Ramsey there is on the defense, facing the team that drafted him years ago. I think it was in
Sure.
2016.
Yeah.
And hey, I don't think he's faced the Jaguars in recent memory. I think he did once when he was a part of the Rams. But hey, he might get an interception. But for fantasy there, Justin, you mentioned start all those Dolphins. I have a final score of 37-23 victory for the Dolphins. 37 points the Dolphins will put on. But the Jaguars will put on some great sets there. So let's run it down. Tua, the big three there, Tua, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill. They're each going to have scores, or they're going to have over 100 yards there for the receivers. Tua's definitely going to have 320 something yards, 3 touchdowns, maybe 4. There's so much room there. Devon Achane probably gets a touchdown. Mostert gets a touchdown. Everybody gets a touchdown there for Miami. Looking on the Jaguars side, I like Trevor Lawrence to have a pretty decent game there. I would say 268 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, a couple interceptions there. I don't really think the Jaguars struggle necessarily. I just think that the Miami offense is just too high powered there. And Justin, we mentioned that the Dolphins are probably the best first half teams we've ever seen in the history of our league. They put on firecrackers after firecrackers in their first couple weeks there. I love what they can do starting this game in Miami. I just want to point one thing out. Last year's week 1 was a 2-point victory against the Chargers in LA, and it was a shootout. I mean, Tua had a great game with 466 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill had 215 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns in that week 1 victory in Los Angeles. So in week 1, it's going to be the same thing. They're home. They're against another AFC, opponent in Jacksonville. That defense isn't that well established. So hey, it's only right for Tua to have a great game.
Yeah, I think Tua is like a easy press in my DraftKings lineups.
Mm-hmm.
Just about all of them across the board. I have Dolphins 35-20. So we'll continue on. And by the way, Dwayne Nation, stay tuned. We're gonna keep me and Jano are gonna go a little head to head this season with our picks. We'll see who does better at the end of the year, and let us hear it. So we'll keep track of that as the season goes along. Next matchup, though, we got the Panthers at the Saints, one of the uglier matchups. You're starting Alvin Kamara. You're starting Chris Olave. And I'm probably starting Deontay Johnson. I think he has a pretty solid week. I don't think it's going to be super bananas or anything, but there's not crazy much for this besides maybe a Panthers upset. Other than that, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a Panthers upset. Fantasy-wise, Justin, I like Chuba Hubbard to get a touchdown. And I like Bryce Young to have a great game where he is in command from the first snap all the way to when they win. I have the Panthers winning this game 23-16 there. Obviously, the Saints defense remains solid there, coached by Dennis Allen there. Obviously, you mentioned Kamara. Justin, I'm not feeling Kamara this week. I don't know why. Obviously, he's probably going to end up having a great game. I just don't know why. I'm not excited about him this week. Obviously, he could have a great season. But I do like Chris Olave to have 6 catches, 115 yards there. Pretty good PPR lineup start there in all leagues. But a little bit of an underwhelming game. Not a game we're too excited about, but I do like Bryce Young to have a game where he lets you know that, hey, no, Dave Canales has changed me. I'm here. This is my second year. I had a disastrous rookie year. It's not going to be this season. Comes out and gives the Panthers the victory.
All right. I have the Saints winning a close game, an ugly game, probably the ugliest game of the week, 16-13. But the Saints pull it off. But there is a little promise shown as Bryce Young kind of tries to make a late second comeback, but it doesn't happen, unfortunately. But moving to the next game, Minnesota at the New York Giants, another ugly game. I do think the Vikings will win on the road. I think Justin Jefferson is going to go bananas, will be the wide receiver 1 on the week. Darnold's going to hyper target him in a game where there's not much. I mean, the Giants defense isn't super scary except on the defensive line. So I think it's a big game for Justin Jefferson. The rest of the group I'm a little worried about. Even Aaron Jones, I have some worry. I'd probably be starting him though, based on where you drafted him. Giants, I'm probably starting nobody. And then the last thing on it, I think the Vikings defense is a wonderful play even on the road.
Absolutely, Justin. I'm going to give the Vikings a 23-10 victory. I want to say the only touchdown is scored by Malik Neighbors, but I do think Daniel Jones gets a rushing touchdown. But Justin, my heart tells me that Daniel Jones will not last the season. I do think there's going to be some Tommy DeVito chance there at MetLife. And I want to say this. Obviously, you didn't mention any Giants. Devin Singletary could have a decent game. I feel he could, but I think Malik Neighbors has a great game. Justin, my mind tells me 9 catches for 166 yards and possibly that only touchdown. Malik Neighbors. You mentioned Justin Jefferson has a great wide receiver, or finishes as the wide receiver 1. You can make the argument that Neighbors is the dark horse to finish. And these are 2 LSU products there going head to head there, Justin. And so, hey, they might want to get the best of each other. I'm most confident there's going to be a jersey swap at the end of the game. I like Neighbors a lot this season. I feel like his ADP is fair. It's just a quarterback. I think I like him better a little bit with Tommy DeVito, even though he doesn't have a crazy arm. But I do like a 23-7 their victory for the Vikings.
Wow, that's big time. Okay, big Malik Neighbors game on the horizon. I probably have Vikings winning like 17-9. I don't think the Giants get in the end zone, even at home. But they get a few field goals. Moving to the next game, we got the Vegas Raiders heading into Los Angeles to play the Chargers. It starts the 3:00 games. This one's a tough one, but I actually think the Raiders are going to win on the road in another tough battle. I think most of week 1 is going to be pretty sloppy. So that's why probably you've heard it, like a broken record for a lot of these games. But I think the Raiders win a close one. I think Davante Adams goes crazy. I think he's a top 3 wide receiver on the week. With the Chargers, I don't love most of their plays. I probably would want to wait on like just about every player, even like a guy that I'm getting higher on J.K. Dobbins. I need to wait. I need to see what this offense looks like. On the Raiders side, obviously, I just mentioned Davante Adams. I think Zamir White is a very good start you can have in your lineups, and I think it probably stops there.
Yeah, Justin, it's really hard to depict this game. I'm going to go with the safe route and give a 26-16 victory for the Chargers. I feel like it's going to be sloppy for both teams. Obviously, you're starting Davante Adams. Obviously, people are going to be starting Zamir White and possibly Brock Bowers. And a player that I've kind of been surprised has gone undrafted in fantasy is Jakobi Meyers, who had a pretty great season this year. But no one's really drafted him, and we've done 3 drafts. Justin, I don't think he's been drafted in any of our 3 leagues.
No, I don't think so.
He had a great season there last year, but I think the Chargers are going to break away just because Gardner Minshew is going to struggle just a little bit. And I feel like Herbert, he's going to get it together a little bit. He's going to have guys like Ladd McConkey there. He's going to have Joshua Palmer, who's going to have some great plays. And I'm predicting there a Brendan Rice touchdown. Just one catch, 1 touchdown there for the rookie out of USC there, the son of the great, legendary Jerry Rice. I think he has a touchdown. There's some targets there. I don't know if you remember Hayden Hurst. He's a dark horse to be some type of a decent tight end in fantasy because I'm not a big Will Dissly fan. And there's some guys there that we're familiar with, DJ Chark and Quinton Johnson had one of the worst rookie wide receiver seasons we've probably ever seen. Hopefully he doesn't live up to a draft bust as he has so far. But other than that being said, I do think that Justin Herbert has a solid game there. I'm thinking 268, 2 touchdowns there. Nothing too crazy from a fantasy perspective from either game. Obviously, you mentioned Davante Adams having a great game. I think he struggles a little bit. I'm still going to give him 7 catches for like 75 yards. Nothing too crazy. I don't think there's a lot of fireworks in this game at all. Just a lot of sloppiness, a lot of just adapting to, both teams have named 2 new. Obviously, Pierce was there as an interim. These are 2 new official head coaches there in prospective teams. So a little bit of a sloppy game, but I have the Chargers winning by 10.
All right. I have the Raiders 17-14. A close game that's low scoring that I think Adams will get a touchdown and Zamir White will get a touchdown. Mm-hmm. On the Chargers side, it'll probably be, I'd argue it'll be like a Gus Edwards 1-yard run touchdown.
Yeah.
And Herbert will find one of his guys for a touchdown. Maybe Palmer, maybe Ladd. Quentin Johnson, if he breaks out, I'd feel good for him, I guess. But I honestly felt like we spoke too much too much on him. He's just he hurts me. He hurts me. But next game we got the Broncos going into Seattle. Seattle's defense is one of my favorite defenses to start if you have those in your fantasy leagues. As for the players, I have Ken Walker as a start of the week at running back. I think as much as I personally actually don't love him in fantasy this season with just a bunch of things with new coaching. It's going to be more pass first. The offensive line got worse. I think Charbonnet is going to be more involved. But past all that, I think week 1 he will start off pretty strong against one of the worst run defenses in the league. I don't think Charbonnet will steal too much from early on in the season, and that's why I like him a lot. And I think the Seahawks will be in charge of the game. So I think Ken Walker is a start of the week. I probably am not starting Geno Smith in fantasy leagues. DK Metcalf deserves a start, of course. Even though I agree, based on what your face was like, they just re-signed Pat Surtain. I think that game that's going to be a bit of a stalemate. And then on the Broncos side, I think Javonte Williams is a sleeper to get 18 plus touches. Other than that, I'm waiting and seeing how Bo Nix does in his first game.
Yeah, Justin, I think this game's going to be a little closer than people think. I'm going to give the Seahawks a 19-13 victory. It's crazy how these two teams opened up the season 2 years ago. There was a big storyline with Russell and the trade and everything. And now they open, these are two teams from different conferences. You know what I mean? Like, and they're opening up the season against each other 2 years later, which is I find pretty cool, fascinating for NFL scheduling there. But for fantasy-wise, I'm not really sure what to expect here. Even though I love DK and Ken Walker, I think it's going to be a Jay Ascend kind of breakout game. I think he gets like a 50-yard touchdown here, and maybe possibly, like I mentioned a few videos ago, he hasn't really had 100 yards in his career. So I feel like it's probably going to be his first 100-yard receiving game in his career. With Geno Smith, man, I really, really wish the Seahawks drafted a quarterback, even if it was like Joe Milton or even if it was like a quarterback from like a D3 school. I mean, they really should have gotten a quarterback there. I mean, Geno Smith is the fact that he's been in the league now for like 10, 11 seasons and he's still making it be able to last. I mean, I remember when he was drafted to the Jets and I was like in middle school, and he's still in the league. I've never been a Geno guy. Obviously, he showed promise to the Seahawks, but I just feel like they should have drafted a quarterback. And to me, it concerns me a little bit how the Seahawks are going to start the season. I do think their defense keeps them in check. Sean Payton makes some dumb mistakes in this game, I believe. The new coach there, Mike McDonald, there kind of gets the better of Sean Payton coaching, and I like Seahawks there. I'm not the biggest fan of any fantasy players there. Obviously, I have Kenneth Walker and DK Metcalf in the league. We're starting them, obviously. I'm not feeling good about it, but hey, you got to start the guys that you drafted.
Yeah, I have Seattle winning as well, 14-13, a very close game. But yeah, it's not a crazy exciting one, but you do got to start your starters kind of thing. Moving to the next game, we got the Cowboys at the Cleveland Browns. Tom Brady's first announcer game, if you may. I have Dak Prescott as a major sit in this game. I'm not excited with what he's got got to play against. He's got to play against one of the best defenses in football. CeeDee Lamb and him haven't had that training camp chemistry building because of the holdout. And besides that, there's not much that he can work with. So Dak Prescott, I have major worries with, especially because he also starts seasons slow. Most of the time that it happened last year, it happened the year before that. So hold your horses on Dak Prescott this week. Hopefully you have another option. Even a guy like Jaden Daniels, I know it's his first game ever, but I'd rather start him. I'd start, of course, Tua, and a guy that we're probably going to talk about in a couple of games on Sunday night. I'd probably start both of those quarterbacks over Dak. As for the rest of the team, you have to start CD if he's playing, even though I don't love it. Jake Ferguson, you probably have to start as well, and I think I'm actually higher on Jake Ferguson getting maybe a red zone target or two. And then Cleveland, Jerome Ford maybe is a fine flex option. Not exciting. Njoku 2 is a low-end tight end 1 that I'm not crazy excited about. And Amari Cooper could be a low-end wide receiver 2 that you could start. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be solid.
Justin, can I hear a revenge game there for Amari Cooper? I feel like, hey, he's home. Wow. This team traded him away for a box of cookies and some Cracker Jacks a few years ago. Obviously, you and I were in line for a cruise when that happened. We were like,
I remember that. Yeah.
Amari Cooper for a 5th round. But Justin, you beat me to it for the sit of the week there in Dak Prescott. So I'm going to match you and say that CeeDee Lamb is also going to be a sit there. I'm not really confident in the Cowboys. It's an ugly week. Like last year, they started week 1 on a Sunday night game in New York. Obviously, that was the blowout of blowouts. Dallas Cowboys defense looked like, the reincarnation of the 86 Bears defense that night. And it just, Dak Prescott to start, week 1's obviously 3 years ago, he had a great game in Tampa. But the year after that, they started the season in Dallas against Tampa, and he had a bad game. And I think he broke his finger, and he was out for 6 weeks. That's when Cooper Rush led him to that 6-game win streak or something like that. But I'm not really excited for this game, Justin, believe it or not. Even though there's some players that can have dynamic games, I'm not excited about it from a fantasy perspective. You mentioned Jerome Ford. I'm not excited about that, even though Chubb is not going to probably play. I think the only player I'm really excited about is maybe Njoku and Amari Cooper. On the Dallas side, I mean, you're obviously not starting any running backs here for Dallas. Maybe Jake Ferguson can have a decent PPR game, 7 to 8 catches for 75, 80 yards. Maybe he gets a touchdown. I'm just not excited about this game from a fantasy perspective at all. If you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, I feel like you're going to be leaving a little bit upset. I have the Browns winning 23-13, an ugly game for both teams. I feel like the defense of Cleveland kind of is the reason they win. Maybe they could get a score. Maybe I'm feeling a kick return for that new formation they have, that ugly new formation that the NFL is doing. Or maybe a punt return touchdown for the Browns. If you have the Browns defense, that could be a great start there potentially in the dog pound. Dak Prescott is not a good road quarterback, especially when it's an open stadium there. And the dog pound, it's going to be ruckus. It's going to be kind of cold-like degrees. I'm looking at the weather. We're looking at about maybe 55 to 60 degrees. Not too cold there, but still, I just don't think it's good enough for Dak. But, yeah, I'm not excited about this game at all, Justin.
Yeah, I have the Browns winning 23-16. I think Dallas will have the opportunity to tie it at the end of the game, but it won't happen with how, Myles Garrett's going to get to him late. But yeah, it's a tough matchup for Dallas. Like even if they perform poorly, I'm not going to get onto them too much. I know with Dallas Cowboys being the team with the most spotlight, people are going to crap on Dak and company for losing this game or not playing super well, but it's a tough matchup. So we both have the Browns winning that game. We move on to the next game, the last 3:00 game. We have the Commanders going into Tampa Bay. Right off the bat, I love me some Mike Evans this week against the second worst defense in the NFL. Baker Mayfield could be a DraftKings kind of guy, but that's not like a guy I'm relying on. Chris Godwin's a sleeper, I think you could argue in this game. Rachaad White, you have to start him. And then on the flip side, I think Jaden Daniels is another sleeper as well. As is the rest of the guys. None of them are like clear-cut starters to me. McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Eckler. But if you got some guts, maybe you will throw them in your lineup. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is another game I'm not too crazy excited about. You mentioned the pass catches for Tampa. They can potentially have a great game there in Tampa. They always do so well at home. Jaden Daniels against that semi-tough defense in Tampa Bay. With Tampa Bay and their defense, Justin, you never know what you're going to get from them. Sometimes they stop the run so well with that D-line, and they're able to play well defensively, and then the next week they allow 30-something points. You never know. I feel like there's going to be one rookie quarterback that's going to shine. I don't know if it's Caleb or Jaden. Obviously, Drake May is not playing, but he could play. So there's going to be a rookie quarterback, and it could be Jaden Daniels. I'm going to still play it safe. I'm going to give the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a 27-16 victory. I do think that Jaden Daniels does show promise. I feel like Eckler shows some. I think he gets about 5 or 6 catches. Terry McLaurin, I feel like he's going to struggle, even though he's now the alpha number 1 wide receiver there with Dotson just being traded. Yeah, not a crazy game I'm excited for. I do like Rachaad White as a PPR guy, or not PPR, excuse me, daily fantasy guy who gets you a great amount of catches, a total of 120 yards, and definitely a touchdown or 2. Mike Evans, another guy, gets you a nice touchdown, 50-yard there. He'll score. And Chris Godwin, I like Chris Godwin to get 10 catches this weekend, Justin. Wow. I like a 27-16 victory there in Tampa.
I'm going to go with Bucks as well, 27-17. I like what you're saying here. I think a big Rachaad White game, Mike Evans, 10 catches for Godwin would be super interesting for fantasy. I think he would go up a lot of people's boards if he has a big game like that, so that'd be cool. Moving to Sunday night, we got the Rams going into Detroit, rematch of the wild card game. I think this game is also going to be a very high scoring affair. You got to start Amon-Ra, you got to start Laporta, you got to start Gibbs, you got to start Montgomery. I love me some Montgomery this week. Who else we got here? JMO, I probably wait and see, even though I like the matchup. Flip side, Kupp, Puka, Kyron are all must starts, and the quarterbacks are also probable starts for me.
Justin, this is tough to pick the winner of this game because, hey, the Rams, when we last saw them in the postseason, they lost to Detroit in the wild card game. Matt Stafford's pretty upset to lose towards his former team. On the other side, Jared Goff was ecstatic, in the locker room for beating his former team that he once upon a time took to the Super Bowl. And it's tough to call this matchup. Obviously, Justin, when it comes to fantasy, I mean, this is definitely going to be, besides the Dolphin and Jacksonville game, this is going to be the firecrackers of fantasy. I mean, the cream of the crop there of week 1. Puka's going to get his. I'm thinking 107 and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp, I'm thinking 88 yards and a touchdown. On the other side, on the flip side, I'm thinking Amon-Ra St. Brown, 88 yards and a touchdown, 9 catches. Laporta, 56 yards, 2 touchdowns. Gibbs or Montgomery is going to score 1 touchdown, but I think Gibbs is going to have a total of 100 yards there from scrimmage. Jared Goff's going to do his thing. Obviously, he's fantastic when he plays in Detroit there in Ford Field. I don't know how to call this game, Justin. I'm just going to play it safe and say 35-32 the Lions. But, Justin, you got to believe with the Rams, they lost here in this very same building and this very same team. There's nothing different about this Detroit Lions team at all. At all. They've stayed the same. Dan Campbell's the same. That offense is the same. Obviously, they added some pieces on the defensive side. But for the most part, these are the two of the same teams that just added pieces. Nothing too crazy. They didn't lose anybody. Obviously, the Rams lost Aaron Donald, but I think that's going to be the factor there that Aaron Donald's not being there, and it's going to provide Jared Goff just a second or two more to throw the football and get it to his playmakers. I think Jameson Williams can have a pretty great game, but Justin, this is going to be a fireworks of a game. I'm excited to see how the Rams run the football and how they implement Blake Corum there. Because, hey, there was a report this week that came out that Kyron Williams is going to be returning punts. How is that going to play an effect to how they're going to give touches there to the running back room? So that's something I'm going to keep an eye out for sure come Sunday night there. Take some notes. I'm going to be excited to see the snap count there between the running backs there in Los Angeles. So this is going to be a barn burner of a shootout. I'm excited for this. I'm glad that the NFL put this as their Sunday night opener. Not last year when they had Dallas at New York. I mean, come on. Yeah. This is going to be a great game. Excited. Love Puka there. Love Jameson. Love every playmaker here in this game. This is going to be exciting to watch.
No, yeah, I like what you're saying there. I think a highlighted matchup will be the Rams rushing offense versus a very good Detroit, rushing defense. So that's an interesting one. We'll see if Blake Corum gets some snaps in there. I have Lions as well. I have them winning though 30-23. Moving to Monday night, final game of the week, we got the Jets going into Levi Stadium against the 49ers, and I don't like a ton of pieces in this game. Obviously, you're starting Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. You're probably starting Ayuk, but I don't love the pass catchers for the 49ers. So cautiously starting them, especially with Ayuk just coming back this week. I have worries, and I think the Jets are ready to show out something, and I actually have them upsetting the 49ers on the road. I have them winning a close one. It's going to be 20-17. Aaron Rodgers gets his win. He finally gets to play a full game in over a year. So I like that. I think Breece Hall tries to outshine McCaffrey. It's a tough thing to do, but I think the Jets rushing defense versus the Niners rushing defense, I think Breece Hall has the upper hand there. And I think Breece Hall will outscore McCaffrey as well in the first week.
Yeah, Justin, this is probably one of the more weird Monday Night Football games to open the season I've ever seen. Both teams have a lot of storylines attached to it, and it's so much to get into. It's just crazy what a year makes. A year, to the T from Monday night. It's going to be when Aaron Rodgers literally played only 5 snaps and tore his Achilles. I'll never forget it. I started him that week, and I see him sitting down and rolling. I'm like, what is going on? Is he good? Maybe he tweaked his knee a little bit, but no, it turned out he tore his Achilles, and he was done for the year. We haven't seen Rodgers since, and that, going into last season, it was so exciting. Oh my goodness, Garrett Wilson's going to be great with Rodgers. He was wearing 17 last year, so it's like that's Rodgers' new Davante Adams because Davante Adams were 17 as well. I don't know how to, I'm going to give the 49ers a 20-7 victory. Historically, Rodgers had great offenses and couldn't beat San Francisco. And
Sure.
now he has the Jets. And, they're pretty good offense at Brees Hall, Garrett Williams. Obviously, Mike Williams, obviously he's healthy enough to play, a lot of snaps there. I don't know how to feel about it. It could go either way because how I see it is the 49ers, they're the reigning NFC champions. They lost the Super Bowl in devastating fashion. However, you can make the case that they have a Super Bowl hangover. And that calls for their defense not being so good, Brock Purdy struggling. And the Jets defense, it's the same way. Like, they're favorite last year to be one of the better defenses in the league. They're also favored this year to be one of the favorite defenses in the league. Can they live up to that expectations? Is Rodgers healthy enough? Is that offensive line good enough to create holes for Brees Hall to get around? Can Aaron Rodgers, I'm just very concerned. When the NFL schedule came out, it was concerning to see that once again Aaron Rodgers is opening up the season with the Jets on Monday Night Football. And this time it comes on the road. Last year wasn't. And it's a little concerning, but this team, it can go either way. For fantasy perspectives, I think McCaffrey has a decent game. I don't know too much about it. I think Kittle has a good game, I think. Garrett Wilson might struggle. I think Brees Hall scores the Jets' only touchdown there. So I have the 49ers winning 20-7 there.
Wow. Okay. So we got a flipped. We're flipped on that one. We're flipped on a couple throughout. But it caps off week 1. We went through all 16 games. A lot of starters and sits and good plays and bad plays and sleepers and how we think these games are going to go, and obviously the winners and losers of each game. But it's complete. A little cherry on top that I want to add every week, kind of a little fun thing at the end, is kind of picking the kicker of the week, a kicker that you can throw into your lineup. And I'm going to go with Tyler Bass this week against the Arizona Cardinals. I think he's got that offense has a good space to score a lot of points and be in good field goal range every drive they have. And I don't think Buffalo is in bad weather yet, so I got Tyler Bass. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with Younghoe Koo for the Atlanta Falcons. They're in that closed stadium, that beautiful stadium there in Atlanta that they have. And I think it's going to be a mini of a shootout. Kirk is able to move the ball as best he can. I feel like every drive he's going to be able to move the ball. I don't think there's going to be too much 3 and outs for the Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. There's going to be some where they get stopped short, but they're still in field goal range. And I think that Younghoe Koo is going to be able to nail 3 to 4 field goals there, along with his extra points. And I like Younghoe Koo this week for sure.
I like that. So we got Tyler Bass, Younghoe Koo, and you can check out game by game what every player, I think just about every player was mentioned. So check it out. And as always, Genoa, send us out.
Dwayne Nation, Justin, once again, I just don't want to stress how excited I am for this weekend. My TV is going to be upset to see me walking in Thursday night, Friday night, and especially all day Sunday. Dwayne Nation, we love you guys. We're excited for this football season. We hope that you guys come along for the ride. We're going to be providing you, information week in and week out, fantasy and just regular football there. So, Justin, Dwayne Nation, everybody, thank you guys for just joining us. We love you guys. Stay tuned. And as always, Dwayne Nation, peace.
Peace.